Hey guys, hope you're doing well. This is Tim, and I'm back at you with the third and final video with our little walk cycle tutorial. Hooray! Alright, so I played with this a little bit more and cleaned up some certain body parts, so here's a little play blast of basically what I got into. It's kind of swaggish and goofy, and there are weird sections where you have some pops. Again, I was just trying to get through this and make sure we got something here, but basically I'm going to go into some of the changes I made with this in relation to the past videos, and some other changes that we can do in order to enhance the performance, and then also speak about things such as the hair, the eyes, the fingers, and other little things we can do in order to give us the best performance possible. So, let's dive right in. So, as far as certain changes that I did, obviously I played around with the IK-FK arm a bit. So obviously this, you move it by translation and rotation of that, and then you have the elbow joint back there. And then with FK, you have control of it from each rotation point, so the elbow, the wrist, etc. And again, just to exemplify this, if I grab the spine, because this is an FK, this is in relation to this position of the spine because these joints are connected. With IK, it just worries about the translation of where that control is. So you want to keep these things in mind depending on which one you do. Typically, FK is a little bit more fun and easier to control, but if something should go wrong, you have to make adjustments however possible and potentially do some counter animation, which is scary. Other than that, I played around a little bit more with the torso and the spine and the hips, and basically made it a little bit more flexible. Now, I did mention in the last video that a lot of the rotation comes from the hips. A lot of rotation also comes from the upper spine, because when you're trying to work in something such as a front view, front orthographic, you want to try and make sure that this is straight as possible in a basic generic normal walk. You can also use something like the nose or the head and kind of leave it in the center and try to figure out, how far is it moving to the left or to the right? If you were trying to walk like this in real life, would you be able to focus on something right in front of you, or would this give you a nauseating headache? Obviously here we want to go for a little bit of exaggeration, so he's really kind of swaying himself back and forth, but in a general walk, you want to try and keep the center line and also try to keep this as straight as possible. And rotation in the Z and Y axis with that upper chest cavity, that'll definitely help you get that, as well as the waist. Something I just wanted to go over with you. So something that we're going to go over are things with the graph editors, editing with the graph editors. Now, a lot of things you'll notice is that when you have your rotation right here, obviously we have a heel roll at negative 3.9, and this is for the contact pose. And for the down pose, we have it at 0, because as you take your step, you obviously have to roll it down, and then the foot moves back, builds up with the ball roll for the next step. So what happens is that if we look in the graph editor, and we go to the heel roll, you might notice something right here. This is keyframe 1. If we grab this, we can obviously have control of the heel. But if you notice here, if I stretch this out even more, is that it actually has a slow in to the action to 0. We don't want that, because when something is rolling towards the ground, you don't want that to slow into a roll. You want it to basically build up speed or keep it even to the ground. So we obviously want to do something here in order to make that effect more possible. What you can do is break tangents. We've got this little button right here. You can click that, and that turns blue. And basically what that means is that you have control of each handle in order to affect the curves of the animation however you wish. This actually gives you a lot of different controls. You can create like sharper effects where it goes up there, then suddenly jumps. If you have it regular, this is before breaking the handles, if you grab them, it rotates both equally and keeps it a little bit smooth. So what we want to do is that we want to grab that handle because it's at 0. We want to pull it up in order to make sure that's as flat as possible, so it has this build up into the reaction. And if we watch this, it has a little bit more snap. It's a little bit hard to notice at that speed, but it has a little bit more. Now obviously if you're taking a step, it kind of freezes there a little bit. So what we can do is that we can grab the heel there, pull it to the left, maybe play with the handle a little bit just to make sure we got that, and that way as he's stepping into it, it comes down a little bit faster. Maybe we can even lower that there just so it has at least a slight buildup coming to the ground. We want to make that look as natural as possible. Now the other thing with steps is that as the heel hits the ground, the back foot comes off the ground. So you want to make sure certain landmarks are, kept in check so that the walk doesn't look weird at certain bits. And speaking of the ball roll, when the foot's coming off the ground, we do the same thing. Now with the passing pose, all the weight is on the leg that is still on the ground, so we don't want to add any ball roll until we are heading towards the up pose. So basically, if we look here at our passing pose, we have the ball roll at 0, and then for the up pose, we have this gradual build up into the action. And it's basically the same thing we just did with the heel roll, but instead of going to 0, we're going to the value of the ball roll. So what we do here is that we can lower that down, maybe a little bit gently. Again, we want to be careful with this because this is why you want to get the lower body right as early as possible, because if this is wrong, then you have to fix everything up here potentially. So you want to make sure that these are correct. Now again, if you want to bring this back and you really want the ball roll to be that amount, you might need to grab the hips. You might need to lower them down, maybe grab the entire arc and lower that down. Again, whatever's going to work for you is what's going to work. So take that at your own discretion. But as far as tangents, we basically want to have this build-up action, so we can break the tangents there, and we can grab that handle, and we bring that down. We can play this around, basically, again, grab handles, play around with however you wish. However you're going to get that action across and make it look convincing, that's what you need to do. And basically we would do that with all the parts of the body in areas that especially need it. We go into something like rotate Y. Maybe these are a little bit too shallow. We can bring them up just to kind of get that more smooth curve, and in these cases we bring them down. Then there's something also like the Z rotate axis. Now with Z, at the contact, this is pretty much a straight spine, but then when we're passing, in order to counteract the hip dropping, the spine reverses into the opposite direction. That's why we have rotation at the passing pose. Now if you notice, at the start, it has that same issue. It's because it just depends how you set up your keys, where they are. It just depends on what you're doing there. So what we do in this case is that we can grab the ones at the end, and we can rotate them manually. And that way they look counter opposite to the one that we have in the middle, which is already correct because it's kind of already in this flow. For the heck of it, I can also bring those up just a little bit more. And as you're doing that, you want to make sure that you're keeping an eye on this just so nothing's getting messed up. Or the other thing that you can do is you can grab them, and you can click this different type of spline action there. And basically that second button right there makes the tangents in line with how the curve is. Sometimes you might need to play with them just a little bit more. Whatever you need to do to make it look good. And the reason why we're doing these both at the same time is that because this is a cycle, we want the pose at the start and the end at frame 25 and frame 1 to be the same. That way the cycle can keep and match. If you have something like post-infinity or pre-infinity cycle with offset, it's going to offset over time. So if you, for example, if I grab this curve, let's say I did that, maybe I even move the value. And let's say I did a post-infinity with offset. And then let's say we're at frame 10,000. Look at that. That's what can happen later if you're not careful with this. So you want to make sure that first pose and that last pose are exactly the same. Otherwise, you're going to run into issues. Because if you have them the same, it's going to look the same. Just like that. All right, other than that, that's mostly it as far as the actual walk itself. As far as different things that you can do to add some flow, you can do some things like playing with the eyes on different frames, because especially in cycles, sometimes the eyes can get in weird spots, so you might need to move them manually. If you move them one, get some funny faces like that. Maybe you just really throw it whenever it wants to work with me. See, look at that, so goofy and wonderful. The other things that you can do are work with the hands. Now the hands you do not want to leave out of the picture. A lot of people want to leave this out because they're very complex. There's a reason why during the Renaissance age that paintings' values went up by the hand, because hands are very difficult to draw and they're also very difficult to animate. If you want something to think about the spine. It has the lower, the middle, and the upper. I think it's cervic, thoracic, and lumbar. I can't remember. I'm sorry. But if you want to look at it in a 3D sense, there's basically 3, maybe 4 joints if you want to count this upper chest cavity. With the hand, you have the wrist joint, you have the initial knuckle, you have the secondary knuckles, and you have the tertiary knuckles, and you have the thumb, which is a very different finger entirely. So it's basically an entirely different animal. So what you want to do is that you can do something simple like finger fold, which with this rig, it basically has one control that can do each individual rotation as is. So you can do something like finger fold, and kind of just do something cheap, maybe get a fake fist, or just a basic fist, or you can grab each one individually. So you could do that, kind of get the spacing, then rotation for the initial knuckle, then the secondary knuckle, then the tertiary knuckle, and then there's twist, and there's spread, and you basically want to pose this however much you wish in order to get the effect you want. And we're going to leave it like that. It's special. So one little tip I've noticed, especially when just showing the extension of your hand in a general sense, is that you typically don't want to go any more than 90 degrees. This is kind of a weird angle to be playing with, so for the heck of it, I'll turn the hand just a little bit. I'll turn it like that just to make it even. So for the most part, you want to try and make this, between the thumb to the pinky finger, you want to try and keep a 90-degree spread difference. If you go a little bit farther, it's okay, just only by a little bit though. Once when you get to this point, unless it's exaggeration, you're breaking limitations at that point. So you want to try and make sure that you have a little bit over 90 obtuse angle as far as spread extension. And then as the walk goes forward and back, you can totally do things like grab the finger fold and move it, flip it forward or back, depending on what kind of motion you want. As this goes forward, maybe it goes back and goes forward. Play around with this as much as you want. We've done it with the spine, we've done it with the hips, we've done it with the feet, and we've done it with the head and the neck, which is just showing you also what we did. There we go. Because the spine has a little bit of a delay, which I can show you, I did this mostly with the bottom and the middle. So if you look at the z-axis, which again also has this little issue right there and there, we can grab the second. We have it basically getting to the maximum during the passing and then going back to normal. But if we look at the upper, there's a little bit of a delay right there. It's because if this is the base of the rotation for the spine and the hips, the farther you get away, the longer amount of time it has to react. So basically, it hasn't, instead of until the passing pose to reach its top value, I gave it to the up pose. And you don't have to keep this exactly even. You can throw it around. Again, playing around with it. Absolutely play around. There's no guidebook to this. There's no set in stone rules. Play around with this however much you want. Other than that, we also have things like the face and the hair. And with the head, obviously, when this rotates, because this is farther away from these initial rotation indicators, it has a little bit of delayed rotation. We can keep it a little bit centered or closer to reality, but the more we have that kind of bend and show and overlap, it'll create a little bit more goofy, rubberier, or realistic performance, depending on how you're trying to bend it. With the hair, it's the exact same thing. Basically, we can rotate it up, down, left, right, and around, depending on how this is. So as the head goes to the left in this shot, this would be rotated that direction. As it comes to that direction, obviously the hair blows in the wind, so it might go that way. If it comes forward and backwards, basically you want to just play around with this every 1 or 2 frames in order to make sure the hair looks right. You can also do it with the ear, you can do it with the nose. As the body goes up and down, you can play with it. Maybe it has an expression. You can do something with the eyebrows. If you want to add a little bit more intensity, add just a little bit of furrow. Make him innocent or angry. You play around with it as much as you want. Again, this isn't really the best demonstration video. This is just kind of like a talk and theorizing video. But as far as it goes, that's pretty much our walk in a very basic nutshell. If you guys want me to really kind of detail that out, please, by all means, let me know. But by all means, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And feel free to like, subscribe, and maybe leave a comment. And demand better content than this, and future content. It only goes up from here. But I just want to say again, thank you guys so much for watching. And I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day. And it was fun making this with you. Bye!